suspiciously like Phil McKenzie. We will be... Oh, we are here. Oh, God. we are... we are here to break down UFC 225, Whittaker versus Romero II in Chicago, Illinois this week. And yeah, I mean, okay.
I'm looking forward to this card, Zane.
I'm looking forward to this too, Connor. This is one of the better cards that the UFC's put on in a couple months, almost by default, it feels like, just because the last 4 events, even including the last pay-per-view, just feel like the UFC wasn't really trying that hard. They were all right. This film.
Yeah. The finer points of Conor impersonations is not. This is not the right place to come for them.
Just say boxer puncher a lot and talk about how much you love some random Brazilian who's got a broken game that doesn't make sense.
I'm just gonna give big love to Dan Ige.
Dan Ige, yeah. Give big love to Dan Ige and like randomly, I don't know, Tai Tuivasa or something like that. Somebody else that you just sort of... Anthony Smith, that's what it would be. Anthony Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Just big love to Danny Ye and Anthony Smith for no particular discernible reason other than they like throw one punch really well.
They're just gritty.
They're just gritty, yeah.
You can see how hard they try.
Oh, all right. We do have fun, don't we? We're here to talk about this UFC 225 card, and yeah, it's kind of the collection of all the parts of the last 4 UFC events that would have made those good events, and has made this one event really good.
Yeah, with the exception of the main card, which is sort of ass from a hardcore perspective in some ways. Like the bottom 3 fights do not thrill me, I have to say.
Yeah,
but they've spread the goodness around the card, which I have to respect. But...
Yeah, but they are fights, I will admit, that are going to get... They're fights with fighters that will draw an audience. And that's... Yeah. Like, Arlovski Tuivasa is kind of a weirdly bad fight, but it will draw an audience. People want to see Tai Tuivasa. People know Andrei Arlovski. Holm still draws an audience. And Covington has carved out a niche, it appears. Slowly but surely, he's wormed his way from being a guy where he would just say stupid shit and nobody would care, to now he said enough stupid shit that people just kind of read it regardless of whether they want to or not.
Yeah, sheer persistent volume.
Yeah.
Just blaring consistency.
I mean, he got it, you know, he may not have he may not be copying the same fun playbook that Chael Sonnen was, but he is definitely copying Chael Sonnen's tireless work ethic for bullshit.
Yeah. He's just like, if I just keep talking really loudly for long enough, eventually I can get a sort of feedback loop of people responding and just going, like, shut up. And then that will get enough views that the next time he does it, he'll get slightly more people just going, shut up, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, no, it's working. And as the rules of media dictate, we have to do the things that make us money, or we will go out of business within 2 months. So,
yep.
Anyway, that's enough about that, about Covington's attitude and how we all play into feeding that kind of trollishness. Let's actually look at this UFC 225 card, which looks like a lot of fun, starting out with a featherweight bout between Dan Ige and Mike Santiago.
So who's starting off?
You. Always you.
Okay, so as, like, I'm pretty sure Conor would say that whoever's going to win is the one who can pressure, but smartly pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry, intelligent pressure.
Intelligent pressure.
Yeah. So this one, I was actually really tempted to pick Dan Ige. Like, because that Mads Burnell fight with Mike Santiago had that one really bad moment in like the second round where Mike Santiago has been fairly consistently winning a competitive fight, and then he like gives up mount, and he's just like, no, pass. Like, he doesn't tap out or anything. He's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna settle into losing gear now. And Dan Ige, if nothing else, is consistently aggressive. He consistently goes for the takedown. He works for scrambles in a similar way to Mads Burnell. Like, you can see that same style matchup potentially playing out again. But that being said, Dan Ige is also just not the baseline athlete that Mads Burnell clearly is, as we can see from his last two fights. Like, that Mike Santiago, I had the same thing as you did when I watched it, which was for when I was like, hey, Mads Burnell actually looks like he's a better athlete than Arnold Allen is. He's just overpowering Mike Santiago, who is not a unathletic man.
Yeah.
And Dan Ige's issue is that he is not athletic. He is determined, but he exhausts himself with his own offense. So there's that fight in Titan FC, his last one, I think, before he came to the Contender Series, like Ronildo Braga. Like, he won that, but he looked super tired by the end of it. And it wasn't even the same kind of wild back and forth scrambling fight that the Burnell Santiago one was. So I got to give it to like Santiago. He's a bigger hitter. He's a better boxer. He does seem to like be vulnerable early to pressure as well as, being breakable late. But I just don't think like Ige can keep the necessary pace that someone like Burnell did. So I'm probably going to pick. Ige's still super tough as well. He, didn't get finished by Julio Arce despite getting kind of the shit kicked out of him. So yeah, got to take Santiago by decision, I think.
All right. Yeah. I might agree with you. I'm kind of thinking I do, but I'm also trying to figure out now if the main event has just been canceled.
Oh, this is the time he missed by 0.2 pounds, right? So there's more twisted craziness going on, huh?
Yeah, well, because Whittaker said initially, like when the fight was announced, that he wouldn't take it if Yoel Romero couldn't make weight.
Yeah, I remember that actually. You're right.
And so now a lot of people are trying, let me see. I'm following. I don't know if this fight's on or not. Yoel Romero weighed at 185.2 pounds.
Yeah, he missed by, and that's the thing, right? Is that
he missed by a GSP.
Yeah, he's gonna be. So that means, like, almost by nature, he's gonna be quite fucked up, because that's not a. I was never gonna miss it, so I just thought fuck it, and I'm gonna come in 5 pounds over what miss. That's I tried literally everything I could short of dying miss. Like,
yeah,
he clearly really, really tried to make it. So like.
Yep, and he got cut off by officials during the last bit of his weight cut. So.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, this we're gonna keep on going, and by the time the main event comes around, we'll hopefully have a firm update on whether the fight is going on or not. All right.
Also a lesson in why you should always have at least one other fighter from the weight class in a championship fight in your card. Like,
they don't for this one. They can. Fortunately, they could probably bump Alistair Overeem versus Curtis Blaydes up to the main card and make Covington RDA the main event. It won't be as good a card, but it's still like they have cards. They have or Gadelha Esparza. They have cards on or fights on the prelims. Even Benavidez Pettis that are like good high caliber fights.
They really have not had a good run of luck lately. Like, this is their best card they put together this year since Khabib Ferguson. and it's in trouble again.
All right. We're gonna stumble ahead blindly in the hopes that the main event will still be on by the time we get there. But we'll so for me, Santiago Ige, yeah, the big thing that I'm concerned about, there are two things. I'm probably picking Santiago just for volume and scrambly, like, offensive consistency. Ige seems like he really only looks to throw like one big winging punch that will lead him into his takedown game at a time. And at a high enough level, that doesn't tend to work. Guys just get out of the way of it. And then you're left swinging one punch at a time like he was against Arce and getting absolutely tagged up for it in return. It also makes his takedown game harder to set up, which is the bread and butter of what he needs to be able to win fights. If you're not landing punches, you have to shoot from too far out and people just stuff you. On the flip side, though, Santiago really likes to fight inside in the clinch. He likes to get into scrambles, especially scrambles where he might be in losing positions, and then work through it to try to get to winning positions.
Yeah, he's really one of those fighters who will take whatever fight you give him, and not in a terribly good way. Like, what is Mike Santiago as a fighter? I still don't really know.
Yeah, and because of that, against general UFC caliber opposition, like if you're always giving away some advantage to people, a lot of people are going to beat you, you know? So that has me really worried. I'm kind of want to lean Santiago just on the volume edge, but I don't know. There's a chance that he just lets himself get taken down by Ige and then tries to scramble through it and finds out that Ige is just too good a wrestler for that and loses for 15 minutes.
Yeah, I'm taking it purely on athleticism. Like, just
I'll take Santiago too on the volume bet, but it's a very close fight. Ige is the favorite, opened at -260 for God knows what reason. Jumped immediately up to -120, dipped back down to -140, and has just recently jumped back up again to -130, or jumped up from -149 up to -138. So a little movement on that line. Santiago opening at +180, dropping down immediately to -102, climbed back up to +120, and has recently dropped from +124 to +113. The closer those odds get to even, the better.
Yeah, that like +200 for Santiago it's crazy talk.
Yeah. Brings us to a lightweight bout: Clay Guida, Charles Oliveira, and the simple thing here is that I kind of feel like I have to pick Oliveira because his submission game is dangerous enough, and Clay Guida has always had a problem with giving up submissions to aggressive grapplers.
Yep.
Who will really go after him and can compete athletically with him. My big fear, though, is that Oliveira has become less of a guy who will just walk forward throwing strikes like he used to. He used to just kind of have this wooden, I'll stalk forward robotically after you, but I'll take shots and just force you to give me the kind of takedowns that let me wrap something up.
Yeah.
And now what we've seen lately from him is a fighter who is much more willing to just give ground and be on his back foot and then dive in for a body lock. And he's got a great body lock takedown game. But if he can't actually take Guida down that way, then giving Guida chances to march forward behind his improved boxing into his wrestling game might give Guida enough positional advantage to ride out Oliveira's confidence, because if Guida can break Oliveira's confidence early, then Guida has always been the better fighter over the distance. So I'm picking Oliveira to get the early submission, but if he doesn't, and if he just kind of gives ground and lets Guida have the kickboxing fight he wants that leads to a takedown game that Guida wants, there's a good chance that Oliveira just kind of quits some point in this fight.
Yeah, Yeah, Oliveira's, he's really that. He's got a kind of classic Muay Thai style in a way that you really don't see in the UFC. The very much standing tall kind of trading style but doesn't have the durability to back it up at all. But it works because he's got that takedown and submission game to back it up, because he just walks forward, kicks and punches, locks up the clinch, will either go for like clinch knees, body locks, trip takedowns, you name it. And he just has, it's literally a definition of an all offense style that isn't based on just charging. It's one that's based on just walking in and going from this position to that position to the floor. But yeah, if he's gonna hang out at Guida, it could be both like a bad idea for him and also a weirdly boring fight. Guida, if he's good at one thing on the feet, is jumping in with a huge hook. He's done it. He's just been doing it for so many years that he's gotten reasonably accurate with it. And Oliveira is defensively not there. So there's a chance that he could just clip him. And if he hurts him, I think that's probably pretty much as bad as finishing him, because he just tends to, he just tends to fold. But yeah, on the other hand, it's just such a terrible style matchup for him. It seems that he's just a guy where he constantly, Guida's going to have to, his whole style is going to put him into Oliveira's wheelhouse. His dipping his head is going to put him into the clinch. It's going to put him into Oliveira's guillotine. He's just like, it's a style matchup that even if Guida was in his prime, I would be worried. I would be like,
I would still pick against Guida.
Yeah.
Like, being a really aggressive ground fighter who's not a great grappler and is constantly pushing for, like, creating offense that doesn't do a lot of damage. It's always put him in prime position to give somebody a submission if they can get to it. Like, his dogged relentlessness was always the calling card that made the difference.
I mean, he got, he's his closest analog here is like that Guida's beaten is Pettis. Like, if he can maybe replicate that fight, then I think Oliveira would give up faster than Pettis did. But yeah, there's just too much offense on the other side, and it's just the durability equation is just not what it was. Guida can hurt Oliveira, but Oliveira can also definitely hurt Guida, and that wouldn't have been the case back in the day. Like, if Oliveira knocks him out with a clinch knee, I will be very unsurprised, or like a body kick into like punches. Like, I'd just be like, yeah, that's who Guido is now. He's just in that tier of guys with Lozon and Sanchez and so on, where occasionally they'll give you a good performance, but then the other times you're just like, yeah, they're not themselves
anymore. He's amazingly less done than Joe Lozon. Like, Joe Lozon is so far done that you're like a little shocked, and it's one of those things where it's like Lozon's kind of in Bigfoot Silva territory, which it didn't feel like he would be there quite so quickly, but suddenly you turn around and you're like, oh, the first punch that hits you is going to knock you out, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. But like, the thing is that Lozon dipped into that territory incredibly recently.
Yeah.
Or at least relatively recently. And then because it was suddenly like, because you could just be like, oh yeah, that's just Joe Lozon. He's pretty much just still Joe Lozon. He's winning early, losing late. He's doing Joe Lozon things. And then suddenly it was just like, he's not winning early. He's just losing the whole time. And you got to feel that that's going to happen to Guida like some point sooner rather than later. He's suddenly just going to be like, oh my God, he's totally gone.
Yeah, it could happen. He's just not quite there yet. Like, the performances
definitely.
he put on against Eric Koch and the performance he put on against Eric Koch was a good, like, I know it's Eric Koch, but it was a solid, decided, round-winning, pressure, striking, and like really classic, well-composed.
You are diminished Guida. Now beat lower-level Pettis.
Yeah. Oliveira is the slight favorite here, opened at -185, a little bit of adjusting up and down, but has basically climbed continually since then up to -148. And Guida opened at plus 146, adjusted to plus 144, and has dropped steadily to plus 122. I honestly like those odds a little wider, maybe, but I where they are now is probably about right. The Oliveira's quitability is a major factor against a fighter who's known for being relentless.
Yeah.
All right, that brings us to a flyweight bout: Joseph Benavidez versus Sergio Pettis.
So Joseph Benavidez should definitely win this fight. He is a better fighter than Sergio Pettis is. He is historically the number 2 flyweight in the world, unless you particularly are a big John Dodson fan. He is one of the best fighters ever or at least, he's around in some metrics, he is a truly great fighter. I would say that he is probably more skilled than, for example, Daniel Cormier. But he has the disadvantage of being in a weight class that no one gives a shit about.
Yeah, I mean, that part of me wants to raise my eyebrows at that, but part of me is also like, yeah, and Daniel Cormier is ruling light heavyweight and heavyweight, which...
Yeah, like he's defensively better. He's a more creative submission threat. He's a better striker.
He's offensive striker by far.
Yeah.
Doesn't have the depth of technical wrestling, but you balance that against all the other skills, and
yeah. So I am actually not going to pick him to win this fight, and not really because of anything technical. I still feel like, there's one technical element, but the primary thing for me is there's a thing you get sometimes when you're watching someone have a great fight when it's relatively late in their career, and the fight's over and you're like, that was amazing. That's the last time I'm going to see you have that performance. And anything like that. And I've gotten that feeling like a few times. Like I just watched it, and immediately afterwards I was just like, that's the last one for you. I'm never going to see you do that again. And so the fights I've seen that happen are like Nate Marquardt, Tyron Woodley. I was like, for Marquardt, obviously, and Lyoto Machida, Chris Weidman. At the end of both those fights, I was just like, I'm never going to see you perform like that again. I don't know why, but I can just... And I got that feeling incredibly strongly after watching Benavidez Cejudo, and him blowing out his knee afterwards has not made me... It felt like he was just clinging on to the edges of what made him incredible. And he was landing counter right hands, and he was... I don't think he won that fight, but he was winning. He won a points. He eventually won a points battle by landing a lot of clean counters on Cejudo.
Crotch several times.
Yeah, and getting kicked in the balls. But he landed a lot of clean counters on Cejudo, which didn't appear to visibly hurt Cejudo in the slightest. So I'm just worried that that was kind of the end for Joe B. He held on for as long as he could. Got an incredible resume. If you look at his recent run, it is really just phenomenal stuff. But I'm just worried that he's not going to be there this time. And partially the technical reason is that I think his offensive wrestling has also greatly deteriorated over his time at flyweight. I think he's become much more of a kickboxer, and I think we saw his power has been steadily starting to decline away from him. He was, if you look back at his fights against Jose de Silva or Uyenayama or even Wineland, those are power kickboxing performances where he just crushes the guy, body shots, knockouts. Wineland, he didn't beat him, but he just beat him down with just pure pressure. And he's not doing that anymore. He's just out techniquing people. He's out sneaking them. He's putting on these kind of incredible veteran performances. And I'm just not sure if he can win a kickboxing match with Sergio Pettis. And admittedly, Pettis' win over Moreno, the bloom has come off that a lot, given how incredibly awful Moreno looked afterwards. But Cejudo could not strike with Pettis in the same way that he could with Benavidez. He had to wrestle him. He obviously wanted to strike, but then about a minute into that fight, he was just like, nope, can't do it. Just gonna have to, like, I can't keep up with his footwork. I'm just gonna have to blast through him for double legs. And I don't think Joe B can do that anymore. So I'm gonna, like, again, Joseph Benavidez, a much better fighter, should win this. Historically, just one of the great fighters in the lower weight classes. Deserves to be remembered in some ways. For me, I will remember him as a better fighter than, for example, Uriah Faber and probably Daniel Cormier. But I got to pick Sergio Pettis.
I'm not picking Sergio. I'm not going to fall into that trap because I respect the gut feeling because I've had it before too. But I tend to try to always pick against it of like, no, if I haven't seen it, it doesn't exist yet. I'm not going to pick something that I haven't seen exist yet. I will say the thing that I like that gives me a lot of hesitation about picking Benavidez in this fight is just how much Sergio has tightened up as a striker. He appears to have really learned the lesson that he cannot be his brother. Like, he is not going to be anybody's idea of a power knockout artist who sits back and throws wild strikes to catch people off guard.
If you gave Pettis, if you transplanted Pettis Jr. into Pettis Senior's like body with his athleticism, he is just a much more coherent, technical striker. His footwork is so much better than Anthony's. It's unreal.
Yep. And he used to be that Sergio used to have these moments where he would just kind of watch his work, whether it was off the end of a combination or whether it was just somebody coming in and him just kind of freezing up. He would just have these moments, like he had against what's his name, Ryan Benoit, where he's winning that fight easily, and he's just kind of throws a combination and is watching the end of it and just gets absolutely hammered. That doesn't happen anymore, though. Like what we saw out of him especially in the Henry Cejudo fight, was an entirely controlled Sergio Pettis who was able to just stay in the pocket, wait for Cejudo to come in, slip a strike, and answer with long combinations in return. And to keep his defense tight, keep his strikes long from the outside when he needed to lead, and just be a consistently tight fighter. And it forced Cejudo to wrestle him, to just say, fuck this, I'm not getting nearly enough done hanging out outside trying to kickbox with you. We're going to turn this into a wrestling match. And the idea, Cejudo is not quite as clean a puncher as Benavidez, especially Benavidez is one of his real strengths is his ability to jump into the pocket. He doesn't cut a lot of angles. He moves a lot from the outside. He's got a little bit of the Dominic Cruz thing where it's like you move a lot outside, but then you just pick a track and come in on a straight line.
Yeah, he's a blitzer.
Yeah, he's a blitzer, but one of the great things that Benavidez is able to do is that he will figure out what he wants to throw and how he needs to defend mid-blitz. So he'll be jumping in, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to throw the right hand and then a body kick and then have my left hand up to block the counter as I walk out and he won't decide that until he's in on the move. And that's incredible. Like, that speaks to his speed and just his ability to, like, that athleticism to be so fast that you can just do things at a different speed than anybody else can. It also means that a lot of times, especially his counter punching for Benavidez is almost all based off getting hit and then returning fire. Like, it's not a defensive counter punching of like, oh, I'm going to roll with this and then come back with the shot. It's like, I'm going to jump in and you're going to hit me with the right hand and then I'll hit you with my own right off of that. So there are chances that depending on how tight Sergio can keep his defense, as Benavidez comes in, depending on how well he can move and dip and come back with his own counters, Benavidez will be there to be hit. One of the problem I saw really is just, again, especially in that Cejudo fight, there was like a moment where Cejudo jumped in on Pettis and just knocked him over. And Pettis just fell down, and Cejudo jumped on him and started working on him from there to take over the round. And I think it's just an athletics and strength bridge that I don't know that Sergio can ever cross at the very top end of this division.
Yeah.
Where guys like Cejudo, guys like Benavidez, if Dodson were still there, guys like Dodson are just too compact and powerful and fast for Pettis to consistently hang with them round after round.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm picking here, is that Benavidez is still just going to be a little too strong and a little too fast and hit a little bit too much harder, be able to just kind of knock Pettis over at times. If he's jumping in and they're clashing, he's just going to be more powerful.
The other thing is that obviously that Benavidez is just tremendously tricky.
Yeah.
And Pettis still, to some extent, you still can't convince yourself that he's not going to take his eye off the ball at some point, or that even if he doesn't, that something will happen to make the fight go wrong just because of that athletic disparity.
Yeah,
and
this is having to walk a line, always being perfectly tuned defensively and offensively, of being mistake free. It's it's like walking the Michael Bisping line in a division not at middleweight but at flyweight, where everyone's a super athlete. And suddenly it's like, oh, you're going to have to out-volume kickbox these guys playing all the right moves all the way down the line.
And it's like, this is the thing, like, you can be winning a fight against Joe Benavidez, and then, Tim Elliott was doing pretty well against him, and then it's like, hey, have you seen this weird choke before? No. Goodbye. That was just kind of that. There's a reason why he's got the record that he does.
So I'm going to pick Benavidez, but it's not confidently. It's not as confidently as it would have been 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Benavidez opened up at minus 260, adjusted up and down to minus 211, and it stayed more or less flat right up until a couple days ago when he dropped from minus 225 to minus 244. And Sergio Pettis opened at plus 180, adjusted up and down to plus 172, leveled out about plus 190, and then just in the past couple days has gone from plus 183 to plus 196.
Yeah, no, I'm all right with that. It's a gut pick. Like I said, Benavidez, better fighter.
Next up, Rashad Evans, Anthony Smith. I'm picking Anthony Smith. I don't really feel like there's a lot to go into here. Rashad Evans is way into Josh Berkman territory of guys who just don't fight. That's really it. He doesn't pull the trigger anymore. Some fighters age, their chin gets bad. Some fighters age, their cardio gets bad. Some guys age, they get an injury that never heals right and is always affecting them. Some guys we've seen age and they just get gun shy. They get gun shy to the point that they don't win rounds. They're not confident enough in not getting hurt that they're willing to take chances. And when they won't take chances, they won't throw strikes. And when they won't throw strikes, who do you pick Rashad Evans to beat if he can't beat Dan Kelly? Who do you pick Rashad Evans to beat if he's going to lose a volume kickboxing battle to Sam Alvey?
Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, so he just tends to follow people around, and then he just pumps feints at them until they throw something back at him, and then he just panics backwards. There are weird moments where he forgets to be scared. Like the third round against Dan Kelly, he suddenly looked actually pretty good. He suddenly started throwing combinations that he never had before. He looked a lot like in many ways that was like the best striking Rashad Evans has ever done. He was literally not just looking to, in the same way that we can say that about Andrei Arlovski of late. Yeah. He was not simply looking for one huge right hand. But if he can't pull the trigger, what's the point? He would absolutely annihilate Anthony Smith.
Oh yeah,
in
4
his
years
prime.
ago.
It's a crushing style matchup for Smith.
Yeah,
Just a powerful, incredibly powerful, explosive counter fighter for someone who is all offense, no defense, like just goes out there and throws stuff and hopes that it works. Yeah. Like
Prime Rashad Evans absolutely takes Anthony Smith's lunch money and stuffs him in a locker. There's no question.
Yeah, it is a highlight reel waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Like, but like this, yeah, it's just not Rashad.
Yep.
Like whoever is out there, it's not Rashad. It's not Sugar Rashad Evans. It's just this guy who probably still has it in the gym and is still trying to like, and is still trying to. I
believe that Josh Berkman looks great in the gym. You know.
Yeah.
I bet in training he looks fantastic, but when you see him fight, you're like, "The fuck is this?"
Yeah. And then they just can't. I just think they just can't figure out why they can't fight when the lights are on them anymore, and they get mad at themselves when they're in there and get stuck in weird conceptual loops. But like the most important thing is that like they should probably just realize that it's not likely to go away.
Yeah, it's never gonna. Or if it does, and they regain their confidence, they start fighting aggressively again, then they find out how shot they are. Like that's kind of what ended up has ended up happening to Jake Ellenberger, and has ended up happening now to Josh Berkman as well. Where last like couple like fight or two, Josh Berkman's been like, "Fuck this! I just need to go out there and throw," and he gets slept inside 2 minutes.
Yeah, your body's telling your body is probably telling you something like through your. Like, there's a reason why you're scared of going out there. So, yeah, I mean, so are we expecting Smith to finish him? Because I sort of am.
Probably.
Because he throws out a lot of offense. Like, and if you act scared, he takes a lot of, like, he's one of those, he's quite an insecure guy, clearly. He takes a lot of, like, courage from the other guy being scared of him. So, yeah, I think he's just going to, like, polish Rashad off with a sad salvo of ground and pound and some more time in the second round. That's it.
Anthony Smith is a large favorite, opened at -270, dropped down to -330, has risen steadily up until basically this line has been all over the place. Rose back up to 282, and then the last couple of days dropped from 291 to 316, and is shot right back up to -288. So there's a lot of movement on that line up and down. Rashad Evans opened at +190, a lot less movement on his, jumped up to +259, and dropped down to +230, stayed right around there, and got up to +248 and dropped down to +232 in the last couple days. So I like those odds where they are. You know, Evans... There was a time when Evans would have been much better than Anthony Smith, and the matchup still favors him, but there's no reason to pick him in a fight like this.
Not at all.
All right. Heavyweight bout next. Rashad Coulter, Chris De La Rocha. I want an in-depth, deep, to-the-core breakdown here, Phil.
Shut up, Zane. Man, like... on any normal UFC card, even like not a pay-per-view, this would be the worst fight on the card. But like, because this is a pay-per-view and we have something special waiting for us on the main card, this is not the worst fight on the card. So Rashad Coulter is quite tough. He is quite tough and he wants to throw punches. This is the extent of his ability. De La Rocha is slightly less tough and kind of wants to clinch and grapple a bit more than Coulter does. He fancies himself a bit of a kind of brawling knockout artist. I have no idea who I expect to win this fight. In some ways, I feel like Coulter Coulter has been fighting against higher level athletes than De La Rocha has, and so his losses are a bit like they're a bit more. It's a bit more like, oh well, maybe your style does actually work if we just tone down, like because Chase Sherman is no great shakes as a like top tier UFC talent, but he's offensively nasty and like he attacked Coulter in the way that a boxer does not really want to be attacked, and that he just chewed up his lead leg.
Apparently, Rashad Coulter did Muay Thai before anything else, so.
But he was great at it. Yeah. Oh boy.
Don't get too deep into it. Come on.
I don't want to have to make a pick. I think I picked De La Rocha in the staff predictions, but that might have just been so I could make Rage Against the Machine jokes.
Yeah, like
I'm gonna stick with De La Rocha. I think like Coulter he looked worse against Tuivasa than he did against Sherman, and that's never a good sign. It's often a sign like when you see someone who's got an unstructured game and it works okay, and then it works worse the next time, you're like, maybe your confidence is just gone, a la Moreno or Knight. So I'm gonna pick De La Rocha for a terrible, grinding, flabby clinch fest.
Yeah, there's actually, I mean, the only reason not to pick De La Rocha is really honestly that I thought he was retired. Like, I thought he was never going to fight again. He was gone for 2 years. He's like a bottom rung 0-2 UFC heavyweight. It's like, okay, this guy's he's done. That's all there is, right? I'm not seeing this guy again. He's a cop. He's like a part-time fighter. Like, this is just over. He's pushing 40. Nope. Here we are. So, otherwise, he's actually a cleaner boxer than Coulter, who just tends to wing huge overhands and then get way off balance when he tries to throw more than one punch at a time. He like brings his back leg around and gets stuck flat-footed in the opposite stance of his normal stance. And otherwise depends on the clinch and just being able to hold people and try and throw some knees. De La Rocha is not a good boxer, but he's a slightly better one than that, and he actually throws punches in the clinch. So, and does body work in the clinch. He looks like he has some like semblance of an idea of what he's doing. So yeah, maybe pick him. I don't know.
On the other hand, maybe he comes back like Anthony Hamilton did.
Yeah. On the other hand, maybe they're both so bad that there's just no real discerning against them, and this fight would be infinitely more fun if for this one they just replaced the canvas with like an oil slick.
Yeah.
Or put on those like big balloon boxing gloves on them.
Yeah. There are many ways you could make this fight more fun.
Oh man.
Like, respect to Chris De La Rocha for stepping in to save it, because wasn't it supposed to be someone else originally?
Yeah, it was supposed to be Alan Crowder.
Yeah.
He was the guy who fought Justin Willis and got shit kicked. So
yeah, I mean, it's just a great time to be a UFC fan when they can replace these stellar matchups with ones which are just as good.
That's right. We didn't lose quality, at least. All right. Coulter is the favorite. Opened at -190 for God knows what reason. Adjusted up to -174, and just nobody did touch the line up until a couple days ago when he went from -173 to -147 and is rapidly rising.
Don't bet on heavyweight.
De La Rocha opened at +150, adjusted up and down to +147, where he stayed until the last couple days, where he went from +147 to +122. So those odds are diving towards even. They should be dead even. There's no reason to discern between these two men. They are both equally terrible at fighting people. All right, that brings us to featherweight bout: Ricardo Lamas, Mirsad Bektic. And I was really prepared to just be like, I'm picking Bektic. You have to. He's the hot prospect. We just saw Lamas get slept, and that could be the absolute decline, the start of the end of Ricardo Lamas. Because, I mean, I've talked about this a lot before, but Ricardo Lamas, his whole claim to being a top elite fighter was being kind of like a B minus at everything. Although, really, honestly, like a B plus, A minus as a grappler, a really good, solid grappler. But mostly just being really tough and really opportunistic. So you could be kind of slowly, barely edging him out all fight, and then you make a mistake, and he jumps on it to win in an instant. And it made him difficult even against Max Holloway, where Max Holloway was just out kickboxing him and easily outpointing him, and then would be like, well, he wants to brawl. All right, I want to brawl. I'll show this guy what I'm made of. And every time they'd brawl, it would let Lamas back into the fight. Lamas would actually start clipping Holloway a few times. He'd start to hurt him a little bit, and he'd force Holloway back out into a distant point fight where Holloway could more safely control it. It's just always been who Lamas is. And then he fought Josh Emmett, who that style should have been good enough to beat. It was good enough for Jeremy Stephens to beat, where he was just sort of, Emmett's very predictable. He's all power, all head hunting, one speed, power hooks, leaping in, just throwing these big shots. For somebody like Lamas, who's always looking for openings, it seemed like a fight he should have been able to time. He should have been able to do what Stephens did, get the timing, find the openings, hurt the man. And he just got slept. Thing is, Mirsad Bektic could do that. It's very possible. But he's not nearly as comfortable a striker. He's faster striker maybe than Josh Emmett. His hands are really fast. But he's really not comfortable with how he steps into the pocket. Like, Emmett has quite clearly built this style where he will throw volume forwards or backwards, and he'll throw power moving forward or backward. And he's has a lot of faith in his ability to jump in, throw heat, take what's coming.
Yeah, he had a huge amount of confidence in his chin, which was part of the issue against Stephens, because he was just like, I'm just going to trade with this guy and I'm going to win. And then Stephens was just like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Bektic can't do that. He has every physical talent, but he does not have the chin that's
and even against like Darren Elkins and Godofredo Pepe and Russell Doan, he's wooden and stiff enough as he comes in and straight up and down enough that he almost always gets hit hard in return. Mirsad Bektic always gets clipped. And he is not defensively sound enough either. He just kind of has this weird, like, high one hand and the other hand cocked, sort of a pseudo Dan Henderson thing where it's like a lack of maybe not a lack of understanding of what made that work for Dan Henderson, but I don't know if you really want to crib from Dan Henderson's kickboxing style heavily, And it makes me what we saw, especially in that Pepe fight, before he landed that body punch, there were a lot of moments of Mirsad Bektic just kind of running after Pepe, throwing these long combinations that weren't landing. Pepe was just kind of gliding out of the way while Bektic ran past him throwing heat. And I don't know if that's enough to beat Ricardo Lamas, especially if Lamas can stay tough and opportunistic, if he's not going to get surprised and knocked out the way he did by Josh Emmett. We've already seen, too, like, Bektic break late in a fight against somebody who could just stay tough and opportunistic and stay in the fight for the long haul. And I don't feel like Lamas is not easy enough to just hold down and beat up on the ground. He's not as much of a at an athletic disadvantage as Darren Elkins is, where Darren Elkins like really depends on being dogged and just like, well, I'm gonna be tough and I'm gonna be on the ground. Like, even if you hold me down, even if you beat me up, I'll just come back. Lamas is a lot slicker and a lot tougher to just control that way. I don't know that he's ever really lost a fight just by being held down and pushed around. So I'd have to see Bektic do that to him to believe that that's just Bektic's easy answer, that he can just take Lamas down, hold him down, and make that his fight. And if it's on the feet, I still have more faith in Lamas's kickboxing just being a little more controlled. He's got a nice straight up jab he throws where he dips into it. He throws good power when he needs it. He hits good low kicks, and he's just a little more consistent a kickboxer. And Bektic tends to just be like, well, I'm just going to throw power, and we'll see what happens. And I don't have enough faith in it. So I'm picking Ricardo Lamas here.
I respect it. Yeah, so Lamas, another one of these guys. He's hugely underplayed, I think, because he's just so underwhelming until he isn't, that you're just like, was that a fluke? But he's done it enough times that we have to, after a while, you just have to be like, no, this guy is a real legit top, like, he is a legit top fighter who has made a game which is annoyingly, it's like irritatingly coherent enough that people try step outside it and then die. So like, yeah, that jab, he's a really hard leg kicker, crippled Diego when he fought him. I think the big threat for me in this fight is his guillotine. Like, that is the thing that Bektic and really needs to worry about, particularly considering where Bektic is now fighting out of, which is TriStar, who have gotten him to get the awesome TriStar mustache, which I respect a lot.
I respect the mustache. I just hope they haven't pushed the leg lock game with it.
Oh yeah. Oh no, please don't roll for a leg lock, Mirsad. Just like
Ricardo Lamas is like way too good a grappler for that.
No, like please just let that Taleb fight be the
Claudia
wake up call,
Silva.
TriStar. Yeah. Like, well, I roll on this BJJ black belt, who I'm beating fairly easily. Yeah. So, but other than that, TriStar do a very good job of teaching control, and that's been a lot of Bektic's issues, is that he tends to get wild. And the thing is that is also a very good way of beating Ricardo Lamas.
Yeah, if you don't give him mistakes to capitalize on, he will just kind of slowly lose fights.
Yeah. So I think if they can force him into so I think essentially this is Bektic forcing Lamas into a slow-paced kickboxing match where he's gonna try and land the leg kick. He can land. He's obviously a much better combination puncher than Lamas is. Like, Lamas has the jab, but I think I would trust that if Bektic is doing anything, it's learning how to fight against a jab. So I think he's basically going to be looking to slip underneath that jab, come up with 1 or 2 shots, go back to distance, like just win a decision kickboxing match where he's going to be like just ahead on the volume and just the sheer horsepower factor. Like, he can probably, if he just stays committed to 1 or 2 punch combos, he might even hurt Lamas at some point. I don't know. I don't know if he can stop him. Like, Lamas is still tough, and his knockout losses have been from gigantic hitters hitting him in very compromised positions.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I trust Bektic to finish him, but I think as long as he doesn't dive into a guillotine, I think he can. What I'm basically expecting is something a bit like that Lamas fight with Hakron Diaz, which I thought Diaz kind of won.
Yeah.
But I'm expecting Bektic can do that, but he can just put like 25% more power behind everything that he does. So give me Bektic by decision, but like if something goes wrong he's still like his durability is a major concern. It's not just the Darren Elkins thing. It's getting really badly hurt by that knee from Skelly. Like he is clearly that his durability may be something which always holds him back from being the guy we thought he could be.
Yeah, there is also it is worth noting too that this could just be a really weird firefight if Lamas, if either guy, especially if Lamas thinks he hurt Bektic and he tries to open up on him like he did against Jason Knight, where he just really started ripping into him with combos, or like he tried to brawl with Max Holloway. Like that is, Bektic does hit hard enough and Lamas leaves his chin up in those situations high enough that this could just be a like, which guy's durability is really actually compromised first.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think I like Lamas to be the more accurate puncher, but like Bektic has ridiculous hand speed.
He really does.
Like really, like he was ripping off like multi-punch combos on Elkins before Elkins was realizing he'd been hit by the first one.
Yeah.
So yeah, if that happens, it could get real weird.
It's a close fight. It's a fight I like. It's a fight that I think it's a good test for both guys because we've already seen Bektic compromised enough to the point that it's sort of like, well, I'm not, you're still a top prospect, but you're a fighter that I'm willing to just be like, well, let's see what you can do. Like, are you going to make that leap? Are you going to be a guy going up the division? Not, necessarily saying like, it's not like Zabit where I'm like, maybe we should just give this guy some time to figure out what he's doing. And for Lamas, it's a fight. It's like, well, where are you? Was that loss that you suffered to Josh Emmett a fluke? Because it felt like you had the right game to beat Josh Emmett, and it feels like you have the right game to beat Mirsad Bektic. But if you don't, then maybe you're about to become, Dennis Bermudez, where 1 minute you're a top 10 featherweight, and suddenly now it's like you're not even ranked, and you're not winning any of the fights that seemed like good matchups for you 2 years ago.
Yep.
All right. Odds on that fight. Bektic is the large favorite, opening at -175, adjusting up and down a bit, dropping sharply to -215, and then slowly, steadily dropped all the way down to -242 now. So money just coming in on Bektic purely. And Ricardo Lamas opening at +135, jumping up to +180, and then moving steadily up from there to +195. So I think Lamas coming off that knockout, Bektic coming off that stoppage over Godofredo Pepe. It's got a lot of people really putting a wide line on them.
Yeah.
But Godofredo and Pepe and Josh Emmett aren't the same fighter, really.
No, there's a lot of recency bias there, I think.
Yeah. Brings us to a women's strawweight bout. Claudia Gadelha, Carla Esparza. And go ahead.
Claudia Gadelha is going to win this, very probably. She is better at MMA than Carla Esparza is. That's generally my pick, but like, yeah, I mean, so we're talking two power wrestler, top position grapplers. Gadelha is a better kickboxer. She hits harder strike for strike. She's much more active and much more dangerous from the clinch. She is far more damaging from top position with ground strikes, and she is a bigger submission threat. On the other hand, Carla Esparza has a much better gas tank. And that's kind of it. Like, Gadelha is better at everything. She's probably going to hurt. She comes out incredibly quickly out of the gate, which is probably very bad news for Esparza. She's probably going to hurt her quite badly, or at least like get something on her like very quickly in this fight. She's one of the fastest starters in this division. Yeah, her only real problem has been that she can't maintain her own pace for 3 rounds. And Esparza, like, so theoretically, I guess it's possible that like Esparza could survive. She's become a much better striker. She's still not a comfortable one. She doesn't like She doesn't like striking very much. You know, one of these wrestlers to strikers who has just like put a ton of work into it, but she just doesn't. She doesn't look comfortable fighting against strikes. But she can. She's definitely. She's worked on her jab a lot more. She's a much more consistent counter striker. I've been really impressed by Carla Esparza, to be honest, of late. Like, she's just what was her last fight again? It was against was it Calvillo?
Cynthia Calvillo, yeah.
Yeah, like she just kind of gritted her way through that fight and just like really put the stamp on it as the veteran. And I thought that was awesome. And I was just super impressed. But like, this is a nightmare style match for her. It's going to be, and she's not someone who I trust to be, going back to the Jędrzejczyk fight. She's not someone I trust to be an unbreakable Carlos Condit type warrior who's gonna just, you can't slow down, you can't stop, you can't. Like, she's not a Terminator. She can get very badly discouraged if she's really on the losing end of a fight. And I just think that's what's going to happen. Like, I think to be honest, there's a real solid chance that Gadelha just stops her in the first with some kind of submission.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't even be surprised at a knockout, frankly.
Yeah.
The big thing really, honestly, is just comes down to power and strength. And actually, it may even, let's see.
Gadelha is just much bigger than her as well, right?
Yeah, it comes down to size too. Gadelha is only 5'4", but Carla Esparza is 5'1".
Yeah, you know? And you just look at them, like, Esparza is a somewhat, you know, she doesn't look like a wrestler. She's not built like a wrestler, not really. Gadelha is a big, a big 5'4".
And I think Esparza, I like how busy she's gotten with her hands. I like how much more she's committed to landing punches. That was the big thing that came across, especially in that Calvillo fight, is that now when she's leaping in, she's committed to leaping in. And it means that she's landing her right hand with a lot more authority. But you can also just watch her, and it's like bounce, 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 jump in right hand, exit out left. Back, bounce, 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 jump in right hand, exit out left. Bounce, 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 jump in right. And it's like, you can't, I mean, you can be that predictable against somebody like Cynthia Calvillo, who's still learning everything about her striking game and is in that stage, seems to be in that stage where she's just like, I want to try and box with people only rather than wrestling because I've been putting all this time in my boxing. And that worked against her. It was just like, you're a little faster, you're a little slicker, you're willing to push a pace that Calvillo couldn't match. But Gadelha hits too hard, and she's too creative moving forward. And then she's really, really sharpened up her counter game. Like, people forget, because she lost that Jessica Andrade fight, she was teeing off on Jessica Andrade to start that fight. Slipping shots, coming back with counters, and pushing forward, walking into her wheelhouse and landing hard elbows, especially. Like,
she was landing multiple strikes in combination, like that chopping elbow over the top, like evil stuff.
Yeah, really cut Andrade opened her up bad. And I'm glad that Esparza took this fight, because there was a while where she just said, like, she was like, no, I need a lot of bounce back fights, and I need to find my confidence again, and I need to win, basically. And she got those fights. She got Marina Moroz. She got Cynthia Calvillo. And she proved that she's still a good, improving, skilled strawweight. And it's like, great, okay, well, take another run at the top then. See what that gets you. And she should. But what it almost certainly gets her is thrown around the cage by somebody bigger, stronger, who is a better grappler and a much more powerful puncher with a much more diverse boxing offense. The ace up the ace up Esparza's sleeve is that she's a very good scrambler and survivor on the ground, that she can just kind of ride through positions and then get a sweep and throw up a submission and, kind of do some Hail Mary stuff. But she's also really physically bullyable on the mat. We've seen it against Cynthia Calvillo when that fight went to the mat. Calvillo immediately got and held top position for long periods, and we saw it against Randa Marcos in that fight, where Esparza was eventually able to sweep and scramble through on the ground, but Marcos started out in a lot of advantageous positions and was able to bully Esparza a lot physically just with her size. And with somebody who's as technical and proficient as Gadelha is, if Esparza is giving up size positions on strength anyway, she's probably not getting them back nearly as easily. So yeah, I would pick Gadelha to probably bulldoze Esparza, but in a way that Esparza's earned. That's what fighting should be. You should earn the right to get yourself in a fight that you probably can't win.
Yep, agreed.
Odds on the fight: Gadelha is a huge favorite. Opened at -400 and stayed pretty even there. Dropped to -430, and then the last few days went from -430 to -550, and is bouncing back up to -520. So it appears a large amount of money has come in on Claudia Gadelha in the last few days.
Maybe a bit much. I can see if she just tries to dominate Esparza from top position, she just gets swept a couple of times.
Arm barred, that would be the most likely thing. An arm bar.
If Gadelha has to work off bottom a lot in round one, I think she's almost guaranteed to win round one, whatever happens. But if she has to work off bottom for significant stretches, I still don't trust her gas tank.
But
yeah.
But I also think it's one of those gas tanks that's built around control. If she's just in control physically of the fight, then it's much less likely to burn out than when, in the Andrade fight or in the Jacek fight, where she's just slowly being pecked away, having somebody she can't hurt and who isn't going away, who's just relentlessly pushing the pace on her.
Yep.
I don't know that Esparza is physical enough to be able to do that, or technical enough standing.
Nah.
Esparza opened at +280, adjusted up to +315, and stayed there pretty much. And then she was at +337 and has jumped up since to +400 and is now dropping back to +387. All right, that brings us to the heavyweight fight: Alistair Overeem, Curtis Blaydes. And this is kind of like the Lamas Bektic fight for me. Obviously not with the same style matchup at all, but with my same kind of feeling of coming in with I should pick Blaydes and picking Blaydes, and then actually watching tape of them fighting and being like, am I really? I kind of feel like I'm actually going to pick this to be a fight where Blaydes gets pushed back and Alistair Overeem wins this. Mostly because Blaydes, I think, is kind of in that Cynthia Calvillo stage where he really wants to prove he can kickbox. And he's willing to go out there and try and throw hands. And he came incredibly close, closer than I remember, to getting knocked the fuck out by Mike Hunt.
That was one of the reasons why people were so salty afterwards, because they felt like that delicious upset was just within their reach.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was in bad trouble.
And Overeem, much more than Hunt, is the ultimate bully. He always has been. If he has you hurt, he will be right there to try and hurt you more. Hunt is more, Hunt's thing is he wants to punch and walk off. I have hurt you. You will fall down. I am now going to just wash my hands of it. And the continued pursuit from Hunt is it's a little less something he wants to do than it is for Overeem. And he has worse takedown defense. So he, he started coming after Blaydes, and Blaydes was able to dive in and take him down. Overeem has always been a pretty hard fighter to take down. And if he's going to be harder to take down, hard enough, because even Hunt stayed up pretty well against Blaydes. Like, he got taken down, he got back up, he was able to shuck another takedown, and it was just ended up being a gas tank battle that Hunt pretty quickly lost, and then it just became all one way. I feel like that could easily happen here too. Overeem, he's got a little bit of a pot belly these days. And if Blaydes can just push a pace on him, come out, wrestle, make this a relentless, ugly grind, be tough, take shots, stay on Overeem, he can probably gas him out. But if he's going to try and start out the fight by, like, let's kickbox a little, let's like have this range pot shotting kickboxing affair where we see who can fight better, like, that's exactly the game that Overeem's been loving lately and been thriving at lately. And if he gives Overeem that, I'm willing to take the chance on picking Overeem to just not get knocked out and to maybe knock Blaydes out first, to catch Blaydes coming in wild, coming in predictable, and to hurt him. But if he doesn't knock Blaydes out, then Blaydes probably wins just through sheer attrition after round one.
Yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to join you. Like I said, like we've said with a couple of, with Esparza, Blaydes is a very well coached striker who clearly doesn't like it that much. The classic example is Phil Davis, always Phil Davis for me. He's like, you look at him and you're just like, he has put in so much work into his striking. He's clearly, and you could tell because he's so visibly uncomfortable doing it.
Yeah.
And that he's just trained these rote combinations into himself.
It's so fun how much, like, the moment his level of competition drops like a half tick, suddenly Phil Davis is like knockout machine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like, leaping left hooks, like left high kicks. Amazing. So, and the thing is about being uncomfortable in a given phase is that you tend to like give up on it quite easily, or at least you just end up tending to get driven into a very specific pathway where you just do the same stuff again and again, and you're just like, I trained to do this, I'm still doing it, it's not working. So like Phil Davis against Rashad, for example. And like you said, Overeem is the classic bully. And he's become a lot more of a counter fighter lately, a lot more of an out fighter. And he's someone who does his very best to give an impression of himself being incredibly comfortable and smug and scary. And stuff like the big looping hook he threw against Francis Ngannou, right? He's like, you could see what that was meant to do. It was meant to make Ngannou go like, holy shit, what the hell was that? And as a matter of fact, Ngannou was just like, oh, that's a big dumb punch, and then just knocked him out.
I think that was also a classic point of Overeem getting in there and being like, okay, I'm gonna bully this dude. I'm gonna push him around. He gets in the clinch and it's just like,
yeah,
okay, time to panic. And when he panics, I mean, that's always been Overeem's thing, is that he makes big mistakes when he gets panicked.
But he's, because I felt like he needed to be the bully, so he needed to scare Ngannou off, and he still likes that big left hook. He used it to knock out JDS and hurt. Actually, no, it was a much more classic one which he got Stipe with. But the thing is, if he did that to Blaydes and that hook went past Blaydes' face and didn't even hit him, I just think Blaydes would just be like, "Whoop, nope, I'm backing out of here." Like, he would, And the thing is, what Blaydes needs to do is he needs to be consistently aggressive. He can't get stuck into a point kickboxing match with Alistair Overeem. He's got too much stuff. He's got too much, like, he'll just stomp kick you in the leg. He'll kick you in the body. He's got a left-hand counter.
Kind of like front kick your knee and then slide away and like just go like this.
And he'll jog away a bit and then turn around and then smile and then drop into a little hunch. And yeah, he'll just be there the whole time. And
clinch up, throw a power knee, push you away, jump out.
And I just think, like, I haven't seen Blaydes mix his wrestling and his striking in a way that I think could get to Overeem if he does that. I think that what he does is that he kickboxes with people until he can just shoot. He doesn't blend. He doesn't have blended mix-ups. He's just we will exchange a little, and then I will just charge you. I don't think that will work.
A better power wrestler, but when he couldn't strike, because he just would charge at people from the get-go and just be like, well, I'm just fucking taking you down, and that's going to be this fight. Is me running into you and you falling over. And then he learned how to box a little, and it's like suddenly it's like, oh, I have to tie this together? I don't know how to do that. And it's coming slowly, but it's gone from being totally broken against Daniel Omalanchuk, where he literally could not take Daniel Omalanchuk down to save his life, to being more functional against Alexei Oleinik and Mark Hunt, who are both like in their 40s, and Oleinik has a bad knee and wants to go to the ground anyway, and Hunt's been better at takedown defense, but never his specialty.
Yeah, so there's a lot of the main event, if that happens, in that one guy is just so much younger that he's going to have a huge gas tank advantage if he can force a consistent fight, and Overeem is going to be just like jealously guarding his gas tank and trying to like protect it with the combination of actual offense and bullshit, which I respect a lot. And I think he's going to be able to do that. Like, maybe he finishes Blaydes off, but I think he can actually win a decision. I think he can win a kind of terrible points kickboxing decision where he lands 1 or 2 knees to the body per round, stuffs a ton of takedowns, and then like maybe just loses the third round from bottom in a slightly like worrying way. But yeah, I'm take over him too.
Yeah, it's just, I watch tape and I'm like, I think this is the pushback. I think Overeem is still just a little bit more complete a fighter than Hunt is at this point in his career.
Yeah, and he's just bigger. Like, you're just in the kill zone. Like, that's the thing. Like, if someone of like Blaydes or Lesnar against Hunt, they just have like a giant range where they can hit him and he can't hit them. It's a great like panacea for being an uncomfortable striker. Is just someone being a punching bag at a certain range.
Yeah. All right. Odds on that fight. Blaydes opened at plus 100, adjusted down to minus 129, and has slowly drifted out to minus 183. Overeem opened at minus 140, jumped up to minus 100, and has steadily risen up to, and pretty sharply for over the past week or so, from about plus 110 to plus 150. I'm a little surprised it's getting that wide, honestly. Like, Blaydes, he's improving. I can see the improvement, but we've seen a lot of heavyweights who look pretty good all the way up to the division, and they start getting into those top few, and suddenly like, oh, you still have a giant mile to go before you can compete at a top level. Like,
we've seen that Ngannou bounce back.
Yeah. All right, that brings us to a welterweight bout. CM Punk versus Mike Jackson on the first card, fight of the main card. There is literally no reason to pick between these two men. They are both awful. They have both had instant shit-awful losses to the exact same person. And Jackson getting immediately knocked out, and CM Punk getting immediately... Oh, wait, I guess they both got immediately strangled, didn't they? Jackson just got dropped hard first, and Punk just got taken down first. The only reason I would pick, I mean, I honestly think there's a chance that CM Punk is a better athlete than Mike Jackson. Like, in that fight between Mickey Gall and Mike Jackson, do you see what happened to Mike Jackson when he got hit once?
Yes.
Like he got blown away like a wind tunnel, you know? There's a serious amount of just like scrawny bandy-leggedness to that guy that says you're never an athlete that's going to compete at any kind of high level at anything. And CM Punk isn't either, but maybe he's not that unathletic.
I'd say like maybe he's just tougher.
Maybe he's just tougher. Mike Jackson's probably almost certainly more coordinated. CM Punk looks like he would trip tying his own shoes kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to pick Jackson just because CM Punk was too anxious to work out. And for a dude, you know, people are like, oh, well, he's shown up in the wrestling ring. He can perform in front of people. It's like, yeah, he can perform when he's got a script. And when he knows exactly like what all the moves are and that his partner, the guy he's fighting, will support him all the way through it and like help him do all the moves. You know, you don't, pro wrestling isn't like, oh, I'm going to punch you and you're actually going to try to dodge the punch and hit me back. You're going to roll with it and like help make it look like a big effect. And we're going to play this out. It's a soap opera. Let's just say it doesn't, there's no pain involved or whatever. It's not that, but it's just confidence in a wrestling ring does not necessarily mean he's at all confident in an actual sport. And having horrible anxiety in an open workout, it's just like, I can't trust that you're going to show up and perform in a cage in front of thousands of people when you actually have to really fist fight somebody again. So I'll pick Mike Jackson for that, but there's no reason that Punk couldn't just come in. I actually will bet this will be a terrible, god-awful decision where, like...
Yep, I'm picking decision.
After 5 minutes, both men are exhausted and haven't hurt each other, and we have 10 minutes of them just, like, Kimbo Slice versus... what's his name?
Houston Alexander.
Versus Houston Alexandering their way around the cage, but without any power or threat.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm fully expecting a terrible, god-awful. So, like, this is the worst fight in the modern UFC, right? Like,
oh yeah, God, yes.
Like, yeah, I mean, it has to. Like, there's nothing even close to this, right?
They don't even have the accolades of like having been good at a sport ever to fall back on. And it's like, oh yeah, this guy's really raw. Like, we had some early UFC fighters in like the late 90s to early 2000s transition period where it's like he's an Olympic wrestler who's basically never fought before, but he's trying it out for the first time and we're going to see what happens. Like this, this is an infinitely worse fight than anything that like Dan Severn participated in half of.
Yeah. That is for damn sure.
So,
and yeah. So, like, I mean, firstly, I'd just like to say that, like, everyone should be well within their rights to shit on this fight.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, I don't want to hear anything about how people are following their dreams and we should respect it and so on. Because this is a simple transactional reality that, you got paid $1 million, therefore you get made fun of. Like...
Yeah, it's a rich man's vanity project. If you can't make fun of rich people doing things to stroke their egos, what the fuck can you make fun of in this world?
Yeah, like, if Scrooge McDuck, like, is in the NFL, like, you wouldn't get people going like, oh yeah, that Scrooge, he really wanted to follow his dreams, and as he gets crushed underneath the boots of some lineman, like... Oh, you gotta really respect how far he's gone with that one. Like he didn't let anyone tell him what he could and couldn't do. Fuck off. Like I would be fine with these guys, doing this shit on regional shows. I'd be like, yeah, that's incredibly impressive. Well done.
Yeah,
but
if he's willing to go to LFA, if he's willing to go fight in like, what's the CES or one of the other like longtime East Coast fight promotions, or King of the Cage, even, Fuck, sure, yeah. That's really damn impressive. A pro fighter that, or a pro wrestler that went out and just was like, I'm going to fucking do MMA and I'm just going to take fights that are at my level and scrap on these tiny cards, bring them a bunch of notoriety over nothing. Great.
Dave Bautista did something like that, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
He did like, and that's like, wow, that's amazing. Well done. But like that's incredibly impressive. But like for this, like you pay the money, you get paid that money, you have that exposure. You're there to be a figure of fun. That's what you're being paid. That's essentially to me what you're being paid for. But so yeah, so this fight is going to be unbelievably awful. Mike Jackson has some combat sports experience. He's fought in Muay Thai and boxing.
So
what's that?
CM Punk did jiu-jitsu, so whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, this is the thing.
I don't have any stock in Mike Jackson's boxing and kickboxing records.
I mean, I'm sure like it's better than nothing. It's better than just like he's clearly had some experience at throwing stuff at people in a pressure situation. So like, and the other thing is that like at this level and a long way beyond this level, the better grappler almost always determines the fight. And that may actually be CM Punk, who is a blue belt and has been training for a while. And so I wouldn't actually be surprised to see him get some kind of top position. He does, in fact, his career did involve like lifting human bodies and moving them around a bit. He may, in fact, be the better wrestler.
Yeah.
Like, and the better grappler, and in which case he may get. But like, I feel like the real X factor for me is that he's been at like very well. He's been at like a very well-renowned camp, and so like the X factor is the transformations that we could potentially kind of see from him from his previous performances. So like the main thing I want to ask is, can he be the one to finally like master the galloping crab punch? like you've done your research. You've read the ancient scrolls. You know that the one man who finally masters the galloping crab punch and who understands its awesome crustacean power will dominate all of combat sports. Like, so can he actually fully unleash its power in the octagon? That's the question I want to ask.
Yeah. Well, you've talked about asking it, and that's almost as good as asking it. So I think at this point we can move on.
Honestly, like if I would genuinely like be fully behind the CM Punk UFC experiment and be like fully supportive of him and would write an article in support of him if he went out and he did that punch again, but he shouted out its name as he did it, like an anime fighter. If he was just like, galloping crab punch, and just leapt sideways through the air and pushed his fist towards Mike Jackson, like, if he just did that, I would be a CM Punk fan.
It has to be accompanied with the look down of surprise. That's actually part of the technique. So you have to be like,
oh yeah, oh yeah, just kind of, yeah. The oh my god, I fucked up look is part of the, it's just part of it.
It's actually part of the technique. He didn't, Mickey Gall dipping in for that takedown had nothing to do with it. That's just how the punch is thrown.
Yeah, it's part of the, it's one of the few punches where it's not kinetic impact. You actually push through it.
Yeah.
And you also move your head to the side to cause a kind of rotational force that increases. I mean, like, see, Mickey Gall can just consider himself lucky that it didn't connect, frankly.
Yeah, really, honestly. One of those, I mean, it probably would have like blown him through the fence. Ooh, or like pushed him through the fence like a meat grinder where it just
he would have just got stuck halfway through.
Yeah,
like in Cube.
Okay, Mike Jackson is favored. Opened at -250. A month or so ago, jumped up to -223 and has moved up and down consistently since then. Is currently at -225. CM Punk opened at plus 195, and then a month ago or so dropped down to plus 178 and has been going up and down. Is currently at plus 181. Don't bet on this stupid fight. Please. Oh, man. All right. Heavyweight bout next. Andrei Arlovski, Tuivasa. Phil?
I guess. I know we have to like Tuivasa. He's like the new Mark Hunt, but without the sadness and the like, oh my god, you're getting really fucked up kind of. But I just this is the last one of the main card fights of which I just looked at it and oh no, it's not. No, it's not. We still got another one afterwards. When I was just like, oh yeah. So Tuivasa, he's offensively, he's actually kind of good. Like he throws a ton of different strikes. He's got nice timing on his punches. He's got a pretty clean hook. He's got a relatively active jab. He works the body. He throws elbows. Defensively, he's non-existent. I have no faith in his gas tank in a competitive fight. He throws himself into stuff which I don't think he's well suited for, like in terms of kind of giant flying knees and sacrifice throws.
People on top of him.
Yep. Oh yeah. I'm gonna pick him to knock Andrei Arlovski out. Like this is like the weird thing is Andrei Arlovski's recent fights have been amongst the most technical, complete performances of his career. Like Junior Albini is not a great fighter, but like that was Andrei Arlovski actually boxing. That was him throwing combinations. It wasn't him like throwing a right hand and then throwing the right hand backwards in a pimp slap. Like it was
one of Andrei Arlovski's greatest moves is the
fucking windshield wiper combination. Yeah.
Yes, it's like I only have one arm, but I need to throw two punches together. So I'm gonna throw the hook, and then I'll just come back across it.
He's like the dude from some kung fu like story who gets trained by the one-armed master in one-armed kung fu, despite not actually being one-armed.
Yes.
Like.
So then finally in that Albini fight, it was very much the Princess Bride thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like I have a secret for you.
I am actually right-handed, and then Arlovski's like,
I am actually two-handed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Arlovski's like, little did you know, I'm two-handed as well.
Yeah. So in many ways, and then his offensive wrestling game against Stefan Struve, who knew? Like this is one of those weird technical resurgences under American Top Team that like it seemed completely impossible because you just think he's too old for that. But somehow it's happened. On the other hand, and Andrei Arlovski has simply never is just not defensively good and never has been. And if you push him backwards, he looked better against Albini, but that was normally due to like one punch strikes. And because he just kept the pressure on him. If you walk Andrei Arlovski backwards, he is utterly terrible. He is the JDS before JDS was doing that, of just backing up with his chin in the air, but without JDS's once incredible durability. So like this is why he's lost to people like Brett Rogers, because Brett Rogers just bum rushed him, and then Andrei Arlovski sprinted backwards, and then Rogers knocked him out. Yep. The other thing is that, admittedly, it's done this once before, and then it came back, but Arlovski's power seems to have disappeared. And he hasn't knocked anyone out since Travis Brown and Bigfoot Silva. And
I think the big thing there is honestly just that he's gotten a little bit slower, and because that's always one of the key ingredients. And Arlovski was marvelously fast throughout his career. And mostly it's his feet have gotten slower, so he's not able to dip in and surprise people with his ability to close distance and then be right there to land something really fast. Instead, now it's just kind of stationary. And, he's or more predictable. And
yeah,
the moment you get predictable, it's a lot harder to land punches that knock people out, because most of the time, punch knocks you out is a punch you don't see.
yeah. Like we're talking, yeah. So Andrei Arlovski, who once knocked out like prime chinned Big Country and Ben Rothwell, is now decisioning Frank Mir and Stefan Struve. Like, so whilst I'd be actually really unsurprised if he just kind of did what he did to Albini and he just won a veteran kickboxing match over Tuivasa, and Tuivasa was just like just tried.
Tuivasa's never fought more than a round, and the last time he went a full round in 2016 against what's his name, the bald
McSweeney.
He
looked comically awful.
He was exhausted by the end of that round. Now, I've been a lot more impressed with his control sense, especially in that Cyril Asker fight. He looked calm and composed all the way through. But it's still a mystery. Like, does that mean it carries him to a round and a half? We don't know.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, if he just like blows his energy on flying knees and sacrifice throws, and then I'd be super surprised. At this point, I would be more surprised by Arlovski knocking him out than I would be by Arlovski winning just a veteran, clean decision over him. But on the other hand, it's all he has to do is be aggressive, wait for like the red flashing danger sign to open up when Arlovski just warps backwards, and then just clock him, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, that's really my read on it too. And that's why I don't like this fight very much. And unlike the way I like the Overeem Blaydes fight, even though I think it's a fight where Blaydes probably gets pushed back. It's a fight that he can beat Overeem, and beating Overeem will actually mean something for Curtis Blaydes. Like, if he can win that, he will probably have had to do it through a whole series of things. Even knocking Overeem out, who's very chinny, like, Blaydes has yet to show himself to be any kind of knockout artist.
Yeah.
And whereas this fight, like, if Tuivasa just bulldozes Andrei Arlovski, that doesn't really tell us anything new about Tai Tuivasa. Andrei Arlovski's always been able to be bulldozed in that way.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, and Andrei Arlovski wins, like, you've just put Tai Tuivasa in a fight he wasn't ready for.
Yeah.
And that by any reasonable metric, he shouldn't be ready for. Going from Cyril Asker and Rashad Coulter to Andrei Arlovski, like, Curtis Blaydes is coming off a win over Mark Hunt. Before Mark Hunt, he beat Alexei Oleinik. And before that, he beat Daniel Milanchik. All of them are infinitely better than Rashad Coulter and Cyril Asker.
Like, and it's the fact that this is the absolute why it's bad is Arlovski is the optimal style matchup for Tuivasa.
Yeah, exactly.
And Overeem is a terrible style matchup for Blaydes. So you're like, if you can do this, you are legit. But it's just like, if Tuivasa can do it, it's like you are as good as Brett Rogers.
Yeah, we knew you could do this, and doing it, like, the most impressive thing for Tai Tuivasa would honestly be if he could win a decision. Like, if he didn't manage to knock Arlovski out, but he just managed to stay composed and fight for 15 minutes, it'd be like, great, you got rounds. You got rounds against a solid veteran, and you proved that you can stay composed. Otherwise, though, his ability to stalk forward with power, his chin, he's incredibly hard to hurt. All of it makes it so that he's much more likely to be able to rush Arlovski, force Arlovski to open up, and then crack him with some devastating shot. Because Tuivasa really, like, one of the big things he has going for him here, and much more so than, like, Junior Albini, is that he's actually a really creative puncher with how he chooses his shots. And like, you could see in the fight he had with Asker, he threw a lot of big overhand elbows because they were just right there for him. But he would throw a winging left hook upstairs where he'd like dip into it over and over. And he did that like 3 times, and then he dipped down and just slugged Asker straight to the body with it and doubled Asker over hard. And then he did it again, and he came with an uppercut. And it's just like you established a pattern, and then you got creative off the pattern you established. And that's the kind of thing that, makes Tuivasa an exciting prospect, and also means that he's pretty likely to be able to just rush in and show Arlovski just enough looks to catch him hard with something.
Yep.
Tai Tuivasa is the favorite, as he deserves to be. Opened at minus 265, adjusted up and down to minus 288, stayed pretty even there, and then has slowly climbed up to minus 244. Arlovski opened at plus 185, adjusted up and down to plus 235, and then drifted steadily down to plus 197. I think the odds are pretty good where they are. Tuivasa, he hasn't proved himself past round one. He does things like his sacrifice throws that absolutely negate all of his offense. So there are big chances for Arlovski to just be patient and composed and take a veteran decision, but Tuivasa should be favored.
Yep.
That brings us to a women's featherweight bout, Holly Holm versus Megan Anderson. And I'm picking Holm, not happily.
Yeah. Nope.
But and Anderson, I think Anderson is a cleaner puncher with a better sense of range than Holly Holm. In some, like more naturally.
Yep.
But she tends to veer between, like, her composure. She doesn't have any composure. That's really the big thing. Is that she'll like throw a couple strikes and then she'll push for the clinch, and then she doesn't have a lot of clinch offense. And then she'll, if she hits somebody clean, she'll then try to open up and just wail away on them. And then she'll get tired and she'll get herself hurt and she'll leave herself open for counters. And then she kind of starts to panic a little and she tries to clinch up again. And it's just a constant like seesaw of offense where she's never comfortable just staying in one place, doing one kind of thing. It's always, oh, I've done something a little bit. Did it work? Well, then I better try to really make it work in a hurry for me. Did that not work? Well, shit, I've got to panic and try to recompose myself and go back to a safety valve. And then, okay, let's go back outside and we'll try and do this all over again. And it's this constant cycle of just being on a really uneven offensive keel, where Holm is just the picture of offensive composure to a fault. She'll just put out the same combinations, whether you're in range to be hit by them or not.
Yep. She will just we've talked about like a few rote fighters in this, and she is the rotest rote fighter that ever roted. She is just gonna hang out there.
There is reason to have pause. Holly Holm's fight against what's his name? Betch.
Yeah.
Like, Betch is kind of the same as Anderson, but much tinier and less athletic, in that she's just like, I'm going to do something. Did it work? Okay, I'm going to try to bully you behind it. Did that work? No, I'm going to try to clinch up. And like, she's a better process fighter than Anderson, more composed even. But there's a lot of that sameness to her game. And Betch was doing pretty okay against Holly Holm until she got knocked out.
Yep. If you gave her like another foot of height and like the comparable athleticism. Yeah.
So there's a clear possibility that Anderson could just be busy enough to make Holly Holm kind of freeze up and not throw like she did against Correa, where she just kind of got caught in this staring contest. But Holm is like Anderson talking about how she's going to prove that like it's not just a boxing match, it's like MMA and multidimensional. It's like, yeah, but you can't wrestle, so how are you really going to prove that? Holm is really hard to take down. She's incredibly hard to control in the clinch, as we saw against Cyborg. And against anybody not as strong as Cyborg, Holm tends to just be able to shuck them and push them back out into open space. And then even if she's not in clean range for it, I trust Holm to be busier and to just kind of like keep on things enough to take a decision.
Yep.
Anderson's just not germane to randomy enough to hurt Holm in the ways that de Randamie did, or pick Holm off in the ways de Randamie did to win.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, the big thing about me for Megan Anderson is, it's consistency, because she starts off the fight, and particularly you can see that she gets better over time. She is, as you kind of mentioned, like, I think she's a more natural puncher, a more natural fighter than Holm is. Like, Holm is clearly
hard. Holm is really like it's sort of like she's trained to be a fighter her whole life, even though it probably isn't what would have suited her.
Yeah. Exactly. She's someone where they've just decided, I'm going to put 1,000% effort into this, despite the fact that I'm not really terribly suited for it at all. But like, she's much more naturally suited to it, I think. A cleaner puncher. And when she starts off the fight, she looks good. Like, she's taking small steps in her. She moves well. She moves quickly. She takes angles. She can like come in with this very nice like pumping jab, and then a fairly quick like right cross she can kick, and it just rots away very quickly. Of course, over the course of the fight, she quickly forgets, like, parts of it just break off, like, and not, like I said, not slowly either.
No, I mean, and that's something that was bloodied up and hurt within like 3 minutes against Charmaine Tweet.
Yeah, she looked great for like a minute, and then good for the next minute, and then like you're just starting to go, what's going on here? And she's able to grit her way through it just with sheer physicality, basically, in that fight. And she won't be able to do that against Holly Holm. Like, no. Holly Holm is not a natural, like we said, not a natural fighter, but she's tremendously physically gifted.
She's
monstrously tough.
Yeah, tough as hell.
Physically, it's monstrously tough, incredibly strong, huge amounts of cardio. Like, she's not that fast, but I think that's largely, frankly, a product of her training rather than like actual ability. I think if she'd just been taught how to punch a little more cleanly, I think she would be a monster. But yeah, she doesn't slow down. She doesn't break down. She doesn't plod like Megan Anderson does very quickly into her fights. She doesn't just break down to being like, I'm just gonna come forward and throw strikes, and eventually you're gonna wilt because you're less athletic than I am. Holm is just iron consistent in what she'll do, and if Anderson can't even maintain her own game when she's winning, then how does she win when things start going wrong? So, and her general aggression just seems like it's going to put her into Holm's counters.
Or it's also going to take her out of places that hurt Holly Holm. Yeah, you can be way outside and have a better reach and just land some huge right hand, and then you're going to walk right into the clinch, and then Holm's just going to tie you up and push you back, hold you there until she can break cleanly and restart.
Yeah. But I think like Anderson's tendency to just plod once she's tired and to keep moving forward. Yeah. I think there's a serious chance we get like a Cormier Jones redux here, where she just starts following Holm around, and then Holm just punts her in the head.
Yeah,
like
Holm's good at that. We've seen it happen.
Yeah. So I'm not thrilled about the fight, just because like it's not going to go anywhere. Like, if Anderson loses, like, who does she fight? There's really no one for her. Like, if Holm wins, I really don't care about seeing Holm Cyborg 2. Like,
Holm's entrenched, and Cyborg's continually been improving. What are we going to see out of a second fight between them?
Yeah, I just don't like. But I'm actually going to pick Holm to knock her out. Like, just she deteriorates too much, and she doesn't adjust to that deterioration. She just keeps coming, and it's a decent. It's not actually a bad sign for her as a future prospect. She's gritty as hell, and she is clearly technically improving. She just needs to be able to establish it for longer than she can.
Yep. She may need a better gym behind her, frankly. That brings us to a welterweight bout. Rafael dos Anjos.
Do we have odds?
Oh, yeah. Whoops. Thank you. Holly Holm is the favorite, opening at -175, dropping down to -208, and sliding a lot, staying pretty much consistent right there, getting down to as low as -240 before rising back up in the last week, up to -220. And Anderson opened at +135, adjusted up to +175, has just been slowly drifting upwards, up as high as +198, and has dropped back down to +178 in the last week.
I could do with seeing them a bit wider, to be honest, but I don't know. To be honest, it's Holm. Like, she's young. If Anderson could just improve, and then you'd be like, oh yeah. I mean, Holm scrapes by Gadelha and even a fairly raw Pennington. So
even in fights Holm wins, she tends to keep them close unless she's finishing somebody.
Yep.
Like, they tend to be, her Marion Renault bout, her Raquel Pennington bout. Those were razor-thin fights. And then she beat Ronda Rousey by head kick and Betch Gadelha by head kick and has lost to everybody else.
Yep.
So that brings us to welterweight bout Rafael dos Anjos versus Colby Covington. Take it.
This should be great. Like, this should just be a really awesome fight. Yeah. Like, despite what you like, okay, Colby Covington is a bore. And you can take that in two ways that it can be spelled, and it would be correct. He is, like, his trolling is mostly, like, just pretty dull. I don't really pay much attention to it. He is also, like, just says things where you're just like, well, that's a bit of a dick thing to say. It's not really funny, or it's just a bit lame. But he is actually a lot of fun to watch. I actually genuinely enjoy watching Colby Covington. He is super aggressive. He chain wrestles incredibly effectively. He knows what he is going to do in every single fight. He will do his best to win at every opportunity. So this is going to be, if nothing else, this should be a tremendous fight of pace. Because these two both keep extremely high paces, and it's going to be basically a battle for pace and to be the aggressor. Whoever is the aggressor in this fight is going to win it. Whoever is able to push the other guy back is going to win it. Rafael dos Anjos, or Anjos, is the better fighter in most respects. He is more coherent in the way he's been put together. His lead hand has caught up with his kind of rear hand cross body kick, leg kick mix up. He's become a much better combination puncher. He's become, like, really mean in the clinch. Like his fight against who is it? Injured French guy.
Tarek Safedine, yeah.
Yeah, Tarek Safedine. That was the first time we saw, like, Dos Anjos is just a consistent tie plum clinch threat. But then, like, against Lawler was when it really jumped out at you, and you're like, holy shit, he is just bullying the crap out of Robbie Lawler here.
Yep, which was amazing to me, because Robbie Lawler has always been a hugely underrated, really good clinch fighter.
Yeah, you don't fuck Mac Brown up in the clinch unless, like, you're pretty damn good there. So that was incredibly impressive to me.
Yep.
His top game, absolutely fantastic. Mauled Nate Diaz from the top, like, tapped out Neil Magny faster than Damian Maia did. Like, what's not to like about Rafael dos Anjos? Like, a boring dude in real life, but, like, in the cage, just adds more scary weapons almost every time out. I am going to pick Colby Covington to win this fight. And the reason being...
sadness? You just, like, hate people?
Yeah, no, I just, I just feel like just not enough people give love to that, that real kind of good, like, MAGA philosophy that he represents. I just want him to just win one for the Trump supporters. No, maybe not. No, he's like the thing that makes me worry about this is that the fact that I don't think people ever get better. The fact that people never get that much better at beating their style nightmares. Like, a lot of the time you can look back at someone struggling in their early career, you can look at like Bart Palashevsky against Anthony Pettis, and you can be like, whoa, you had these issues. Like, you can spot issues that they just kept with them all the way up until they were...
Yeah, there's definitely the whole thing about like fight. People are always like, oh, if this guy can just fix this gap XYZ, they're gonna be great. Or if they can just add XYZ to their game, and it's like they're probably just gonna keep getting good enough at all the things they're good at that hopefully the holes matter less. Like, that's usually what tends to happen.
Yeah, and it's also that like improvements are much easier to come by against good style matchups. Like a classic example, like JDS Rothwell, right? Like, people were like, wow, JDS is circling off the fence and doing so much better, and he's clearly improved. And it was because Rothwell was such a crazy easy style match for him that he had mental space freed up to be able to do things that he couldn't traditionally do. Meanwhile, when you're up against a bad style matchup, the one you've always struggled with, just takes up a lot of mental effort. You see parts of the game that have been added in immediately strip away. Like, it is just so. Yeah,
I mean, losses to Khabib Nurmagomedov, Gleison Tebow, Clay Guida. Yeah,
and the big one for me, Evan Dunham. Like, we all know that's a loss, and he is the biggest analog for Covington out of the lot. And there's no chance RDA was winning that if it went another 2 rounds. Like, in terms of what was happening, just kept a huge, like, peppery pace where he just threw a ton of strikes, attacked everything in the clinch, kept trying to push the pace in the clinch and the positions there, and just never stopped. And the thing is that RDA can be pushed back, like, even at his most technical. In the Ferguson fight is a fantastic fight, but you can see that he's not enjoying. He's a good range kickboxer. He can fence with Ferguson. He's just not enjoying it. It's not like when he's getting Pettis up against the fence and just fucking him up. He's just being good, but it's not enough. Meanwhile, Ferguson is enjoying it. He's just like, doing slow, ugly spins and like rolling for stuff, and capitalizing the first letter of every word. Like, I've just got to think, like, Covington sits just inside the range that RDA always likes, and he just throws a ton of stuff, and then he just runs for the body lock and then just continually works for it. And I think he's not going to win round 1.
No.
And I think there's a solid chance he's not going to win round 2 either. But unfortunately, I think just over time, like, RDA will just go back to like Guida, Dunham, Nurmagomedov, like, unless he can. I mean, this is the thing. If RDA can force Covington backwards, if Covington gets hit by something, he's just like, actually, you know what? I think I'm going to try and fence from range like I did against Maia. He's just going to get fucked up. Like, RDA will rip his leg off.
Yep.
But yeah, it's going to be RDA's, his body kick isn't going to be there. It's a close stance matchup. Which is probably his best, like, finishing weapon. he's going to be able to attack the leg a lot more, but he's going to be scared of doing that due to the takedown. Like, he's not. The thing is, like, his clinch game and his leg kicks against Robbie Lawler, which was also, close stance. Those were in part he was able to go for those because he wasn't scared of getting taken down in return.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pick Colby Covington to just throw a ton of leaf blower volume, keep going for shot takedowns, chain shots, like 1-2 right high kick. No. Decision.
Man, that is putting some serious depression on me because I can see it. I'm not picking it, but I can see it. A big thing is that I'm worried that Covington. I worry that Covington is falling into that same trap that so many other fighters like Covington fall into, which is this idea of like, I've been learning to box. I want to box. I want to be a kickboxer. And if RDA, like Dong Young Kim, part of that fight was that Kim actually pushed to try to wrestle with Colby Covington. Like, the first person to shoot a takedown in that fight was Dong Young Kim.
Yeah.
And then when Covington hooked up with him later on in the fight, he got stuffed early, and then Kim wasn't willing to disengage, and he would just let Covington chase him down through chain takedowns. But, like, you see the Maia fight, and you see Covington just out there, like, wanting to be a range kickboxer and wanting to, like, make that his game, trying to be exciting, trying to show off his hands, trying to look confident.
I mean, in fairness, that was his best path to victory in that fight. It was just to be a terrible range kickboxer and drown Maia in volume.
True.
Like, I mean, as ugly as it was far more like he won the bout far more convincingly than like Usman did.
True.
It was like he really fucked Maia up.
Yeah, there's a part. I mean, if he's smart enough to just actually, pick the right tool for the right task and just goes after to try to wrestle RDA as hard as he can. Because, yeah, that was a worry too. Like, watching the Lawler fight, watching RDA go backwards in that fight, he still makes a ton of mistakes moving away. He's still a pressure fighter at heart. And, like, when Robbie Lawler chased him, oftentimes he'd just back himself straight into the fence and just, like, wave Robbie Lawler in and then try to counter off the fence while getting tagged up. And then clinch up and then beat Robbie Lawler in the clinch, which was super impressive. But if he clinches up with Covington, does he just start getting pulled around and pushed to the mat and get into this exhausting war of attrition?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that, honestly, Covington is hurtable. I think Covington is open enough both going forward and backward, and potentially hurtable enough going forward and backward, that I think RDA can hurt him badly enough early to make Colby Covington predictable. Like, predictable in a way that even though he's always predictable in a way he doesn't want to be predictable. Not in that, like, pace way predictable, but in that, like, kind of in that Dong Young Kim fight predictable way where he's taking really bad shots and getting sprawled out and then having to fight through them. But I have more faith in RDA making the right choices than Crazy Dong, who tends to just kind of get wrapped up in the moment of the fight and just be like, here's some wild shit I can do, or I don't know, I'm just going to try and get mixed up in whatever this is. So I'm going to pick RDA to maybe even knock him out and to be the final sort of kickboxing lesson that you can't just be a really bad kickboxer who pours volume on people with no technique at the highest level.
Yeah, the issue with Covington is like the issue with Velasquez or Rousey or any other hyper aggressive striker grappler person, like, is that if someone puts a stick something into the spokes of the game, they are going to get fucked up. Like, because all they're going to do is they're going to come forward into the same thing, which fucks them up again and again and again until they are done.
Yeah.
If RDA really like finds a solution to Covington's game, Covington is going to get hideously beaten. Like,
and that's kind of what I feel like is going to happen here, because Covington he's not even Khabib Nurmagomedov standing, where Khabib is not, he's wooden and he doesn't have a deep bag of tools that he can draw from, but he's unpredictable and he's amazingly fast. Like, Khabib is, he's at the very far end of elite athletes when it comes to speed and strength. So he's, as we even saw in the Iaquinta fight, it's like, yeah, he's wide open standing in front of Iaquinta, but he can hit Iaquinta so fast that there's just nothing Iaquinta could do about it. Covington isn't that dude. Like, he doesn't have that ability to throw somebody off. He just kind of has to keep coming after them and coming after them and coming after them to the point that they break. But there is also the fact that RDA at some point lost to Gleison Tebow. And like Colby Covington is very much in the Gleison Tebow mold with a more with a better gas tank and a better wrestling game. So, yeah, there's serious possibility for him to turn that, to make that happen. But I hope not. for all of our sakes.
Yeah, also because RDA is easily the most entertaining, like, elite welterweight at the moment.
Oh God, yes.
I mean, to be honest,
Covington is saving grace of Chael Sonnen's elite fighter personality, which was, by turns charming and awful. The saving grace of it was that he never actually won the big fight. Like, he never won the title.
Yeah, he would have been insufferable.
Yeah, it was always this pesky underdog thing instead of just like, oh God, just nonstop ego drowning us all the time. So I feel like if Covington wins even this belt, it's just going to be...
Yeah, I mean, like, at least, like, to be honest, he's the second most entertaining, welterweight at the moment.
True.
Like, in terms of, like, his actual, like, fighting, he's, to be honest, it's, like, between him and, like, after that, it's, like, Wonderboy, Woodley, whatever.
Usman.
Let's go watch Bellator.
All right. Yeah, you're not wrong. Colby Covington opened at plus 150, in fact, dropped to minus 107 and was at plus 105 all in the lead up. And then in the past week, he's dropped sharply down to minus 128. So fans are picking up, bettors are picking up what you're putting down there. RDA opened at minus 190, adjusted to minus 130, and was tracked in there all for the past couple months. And then in the last week went from minus 125 to plus 104. So RDA coming in a slight underdog. That brings us to a middleweight bout, Robert Whittaker, Yoel Romero, which I think is still on.
I can't see anything on Twitter about it being cancelled, so
I think the fight is going to go ahead as a non-title fight. Tweet 40 seconds ago from Ariel Helwani.
Yep.
They haven't been given official word yet as to whether the fight is on. They are hopeful, though, they would receive a percentage of Romero's purse if so. So it sounds like that fight will go ahead, likely as a non-title bout, which would be a saving grace. I don't want to lose that fight.
Yep.
And I am picking Robert Whittaker going into this. Mostly because the dynamics that we saw in their first fight haven't changed significantly. And if anything, they're going to improve in Robert Whittaker's favor. The biggest of those being that Robert Whittaker is younger and has a better gas tank.
Yep.
And can fight more consistently to his style. Because, I mean, the unfortunate thing for Whittaker in this matchup is that he really has to fight Yoel Romero's fight, which is that he has. I mean, he has to stand up and be at range and try and trade shots with Yoel Romero. He can't even try to do what Weidman or Jacare did, which, you know, didn't work for Weidman and almost worked for Jacare, of tangling with him on the ground and getting into battles of, you know, trying to test grappling skill and things like that. That Whittaker just doesn't have the game for that, and it would be exhausting for him to try it. I think it would nullify one of his biggest advantages to try and grapple Yoel Romero. But what we saw in that first fight is that, and what I mean, a style that, and it's an adjustments I think can be made with it to make it a better fight for Whittaker, is that Whittaker came out of the gate putting volume on Yoel Romero. Rather than looking to counterpunch and just sit back, he just said, okay, I'm just going to go straight into Yoel Romero's teeth, straight into his counter game, and I'm going to keep a constant string of high kicks and of combination boxing on him, and I'm going to trust my takedown defense and my ability to get to scramble to get me up in a hurry when I need it. And because Romero II is not like, you know, Romero's not a jiu-jitsu wizard. He's never submitted anyone in his career. And so the idea, you know, the chances of Whittaker getting stuck in a position where he's in huge amounts of danger against Yoel Romero are not that high. Getting taken down, he can be in a position where he might eat a few shots or get controlled a little bit. But Whittaker's incredibly good at getting back to his feet, at scrambling out of those positions. And while he can give up his back doing it, like he did to Jacare and he did to Romero, Romero is unlikely to take advantage of it in the same ways that Jacare would. So with Whittaker, if he can come out and he can put a pace on Romero again, and this time be prepared for the leg kicks that hurt him the first time, if he can, you know, be better about checking them, more conscious of them coming, and more, you know, more defensively minded as he moves forward, then putting a pace on Yoel Romero early pays off dividends for him late. The problem, of course, being that doing that for Whittaker early in the fight also got him dinged up. Like, it lost him rounds. It got him taken down. It drove him right into takedowns. It got him hit hard. His face was all swollen up by the end of those first couple rounds. Like, you are marching straight into Yoel Romero's power counter game, which is the bread and butter of how Yoel Romero gets to be such a great fighter, is that he carries power with him all through every round of the fight, and then can back that up with unstoppable wrestling takedowns if he needs to. But if he puts the pace on him, if he forces Yoel Romero to fight at a faster pace than he wants to, fight faster than just being able to sit and sort of do his whole see all options at all times and pick just the right one at any moment, if he can take that away from him, then come round 3, 4, 5, you have to bet on Robert Whittaker to be in a better position to throw volume offense and take rounds.
Yep. Yeah, so that seems like it's much of, it's just the primary dynamic, isn't it? Is that just Romero doesn't know when he can spend energy against Whittaker. He's just, that style just means that he's constantly like, because he wants to do that thing, where he's holding back some of his energy, and then he figures out exactly what they're going to do, and he sees the entirety of their game, and then he can see the point that he wants to hit it, and then he just whacks it as hard as he can once, and then they fly apart. But against Whittaker will just force him to work the whole time, not in an actual like Colby Covington, I'm just going to be throwing a million strikes and takedowns at you, but in that he's not sure what anything that's coming at him is. He's just like, is this a jab? Is this a feint? Is this a right high kick? I don't know what any of these, like, he's constantly like being forced into these points where he's trying to figure out what to spend on defense, how much he has to spend. And he doesn't like that. He likes to be like, I'm going to use the minimum for everything you're going to do. I'm going to
like
give up a takedown.
Romero's like an insanely conservative Robbie Lawler in his boxing, where Lawler gets all of his information by engaging you in a dogfight and then sort of learning everything that happens through the course of that dogfight. Romero's just like, I'm just going to sit and watch and just see what everything that's happening. And then after a couple rounds, it's like, oh wait, that's what you're going to do right now. I'll pick that and just kill you with it.
Yep. So that, but the thing is that these are two just amazingly intelligent fighters. Yeah. Like something that I really didn't appreciate about Yoel Romero when I first watched him in the UFC, because he just looks super random. Mm-hmm. But then you realize that strategy, that, you know, find the weak spot and then crack the nut kind of thing, that's totally consistent. You don't just knock people out the whole time in the third round after like doing nothing, unless you're seriously figuring people out.
Yeah.
Like, and you can see like he wins the first. He almost always wins the second round more than he does in the first. You know, he has trend lines through his fights. Like that fight against Rockhold, he forces Rockhold back to the fence with nothing. All he does is get in his face and fake the blitzes that he'd been doing earlier in the fight. Is that he would just go like, see this? Did nothing apart from pumping a fake jab, and Rockhold just backed himself up in an outward spiral until he was in the cage and then just got annihilated. But
I even wonder too if Romero does it without watching any tape on people. Like, I don't know if he's a tape study and not. Yeah. You never know with fighters, because like with the Rockhold fights, like that overhand left to Rockhold is going to be there all night. But like Romero actually went through the whole process of figuring it out and finding it.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. He might have known. Yeah. It's always difficult because some people just don't process tape in the same way. You know, they don't they're like, no, I need this guy's exact timing of who he is as a person. So the issue is like, there's a few interesting things that like for Romero in a rematch, can that push the third round moment forward? Because by the time he got to like that third round, if he had any kind of third round moment in against Whittaker, he was really tired.
Yeah, so we've never seen him fight a rematch. He's never fought anyone twice.
Yeah. So what happens if he's super fresh and he's like, I feel like I have a really good read on Robert Whittaker now? I don't think that's actually going to be. I don't think he can do that in the first round. I don't think he's one of these guys. Because, like you said, I don't think he's a tape study guy. I think a guy who comes out and then immediately looks tons better in the rematch. That's someone I feel like a Frankie Edgar, someone who just like researches all the issues with someone. I think like Romero will need time to figure Whittaker out, even in a rematch. It may just be shorter. And the second thing is, I think he's probably going to realize he just needs to abandon the takedowns, because that was because he was just like, yeah, this is an Australian kickboxer. This guy, I'm going to do to this guy what I did to Brad Tavares. Just going to, disrupt his timing completely with takedowns. And then he was like, what the fuck is going? What? Guy, like, I can't keep a hold of this guy.
Yeah.
He's like a goddamn salmon fighting up a waterfall. Like, how do you keep him on the floor? So like, and that more than anything felt like it taxed his gas tank. It's just like, is just the fact that he kept trying to wrestle with Whittaker, and Whittaker was just like, oh yeah, I'm a freakishly good natural wrestler. Bet you didn't know that. And so those two factors are interesting to me. But on the other hand, so I feel like a pure kickboxing match will actually favor Romero slightly more. But even then, I feel like there's just the volume equation. And he's just like, Whittaker would just forces him to work. It's just the style between the two of them. Whittaker is not letting him hang at range and read what's coming, because Whittaker has him blinded with the jab. Whittaker has an angle on him when he's approaching. He's never chasing after Romero and Romero allows him to slide past, he's just standing in front of him, standing just off to the side, standing in front of him, standing just off to the side, jab in the face, can't see what it is. Like, he's got this jab, and then what's coming behind it? Is it the right hand? Is it the head kick? Like, he's constantly trying to, like, having to burn more energy on his defense than he wants to. And like, the weight cut miss, that's got to be like,
it will say,
like I said, it's a bad one.
The update I saw from his manager, which is Malkikawa, so take a huge grain of salt on that. But they said, the report, he said that what he said, it was that he was concerned, he was worried for Yoel Romero when he botched his weight cut against Rockhold in Australia. This time, they were not concerned at all, and they're really pissed off that the commission pulled the plug early, and they don't know why. So that could just be talk, but that is the official read we've gotten out of his camp.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds weird to me.
Yeah. Either way.
I mean, it sounds a bit like that stoppage. I was totally about to stand up and get him kind of thing. I was totally 100% conscious kind of thing. Like, yeah, I bet he was fine. I don't know. Like, we can never really tell. But whatever you say, he's not getting any like size or performance bonus benefit from it. Like,
probably not.
It's not like we're not talking Oliveira Brooks here.
No.
Or like Lineker, whoever, where it's just like, oh yeah, I'm actually just tons bigger and I just didn't want to cut the weight.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
sorry. Go finish up.
So yeah, I think I'm probably gonna take. I think I'm gonna stick with Bobby Knuckles by decision. I think Romero just chucks the takedowns away for this one. I think he just kickboxes it out. Might even make it closer in the later rounds, but just think it's a rough style matchup for him.
Yeah. Odds on the fight: Whittaker is the favorite, opened at -150, adjusted down to -174, and has trickled all the way down to -246 over time. Romero opened at +110, adjusted up to +146, and has slowly risen up to +192, jumping up in the last few hours, I think probably because of the weight cut issue, to +199. That's all. We've dragged this out way too long. You can find me on Twitter at TheseAnytime. You can find Phil on Twitter at EvilGregJackson. You can find both of us over at BloodyElbow.com, week in, week out, and on MMANation.com, DOTCOM, all spelled out over on YouTube. Give us a like here on this video, thumbs up down there. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, MMANation.com, which I already said, and I don't need to say it again. And we will be back next week for the MMA Depressed Us, Phil and Connor and I. And we will also, I'll be back for the 6th round after the fights this weekend, and we'll have all of our normal shows and all that. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.